Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Vicki, and we're all glad you're here. We have a few things to clear up. First of all, this is not an AA meeting. It's one member's take on the exact nature of the wrong, as we find it on page 64 of our AA Big Book, and the solution found in the 12 steps. This meeting is being recorded, and there's a memo here. Please remember, it's not an all-share meeting. It's Paul will give his take on a reading, and the relation to the 12 steps of recovery, and then we'll discuss it a bit.
And there can be shares, just not,
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
Sure.
For details regarding the events and Paul's story under arrest, and there's a couple other books of wonderful interest and fabulous exclusive t-shirts, as well as events and videos. Check out the website zenbitchslap.com. And so let's go back on the reading, because we refer to it so often on page 63. Let's start out with page 62 to lead up to the message on page 63. Let's begin with selfishness. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, of course. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. And the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he doesn't usually think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom. Okay, here it goes. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed. If we kept close to him and performed his work well, established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. Take it from there, Paul.
Well, thank you, Mickey. Yeah, this is a very, obviously, these paragraphs, if you've gone through this process or are going through this process or are the product of this process at this point, these have quite a lot of meaning. Yeah. And I'm just going to go over it quickly and attempt to point out the platform of these talks, the exact nature of the wrong of as being self, and self is actually foreign to us, because how we're defeated by it is taking ourselves to be it. Yeah. So if the real active agent of the disease is taking yourself to be something you're not, then the antidote would be recognizing that it's foreign to you. Yeah. So you're not the flu, even though you have the flu. Yeah. Or actually, if you've been under a flu, it has you, basically. Yeah. This kind of posture or position, I feel, is pretty sound to look at everything else concerning recovery and addiction. It's a pretty nice point of view. And it happened with me around the 7th year sobriety, I think. It was happening, but I didn't have an understanding. And then one night, going over how it works, I saw the word self on page 64, whatever, and it represented something foreign to me. And the first way I started sharing about it was a parasitical movement. Yeah. And with that sense of otherness, it opened up a possibility of being free from it. And it also, at that moment, that possibility became available. I had like a many-year scan quickly of what was going on mostly in my life, and that was self trying to get out of self. I had no idea the depths of it or the stubbornness of it or the mechanicalness of it. I had no idea. I took everything very personally, and I thought I had done all those things that I was driven to do under the influence. Therefore, no matter how present I was carrying a lot of past with me all the time in my recovery. And it was starting to be seen as a dead weight, really. And this gave me a way out of owning that shit. That because of that sense of doership is so strong in our programming, but the doing that has come through us, through the influence of self, is so outlandish at times. It's difficult to see that you are the doer of it, I humbly believe. I mean, it just goes to such outlandish lengths, and you end up in so many demoralized, pitiful conditions. I cannot see how that could be us. I just cannot see it. I do not believe we have a relationship with ourselves that we hate ourselves. I do not believe that. I do not believe we are our own worst enemy. I believe we may be identified as our own worst enemy, but I do not believe we are our own worst enemy. And I believe the book gives you these glints of freedom, but then goes back to the old habitual view, which is I am the root of the problem. I manufacture my own misery. I'm not a believer in that at all anymore. Right now, I don't seem to be manufacturing misery as one of my main product lines. I'm not. And I take the sense of me in relationship to recovery as something that's being used or driven or employed. As it says, we have a new employer. That implies there was an old employer. So we have always been employed or been used our whole life. It's what happens with us and through us and as us is truly based on who's employing us or what is employing us. And in AA, they make two possibilities. It's either trusting finite self or trusting the infinite. So we're being employed by self or we are being employed by the higher power. You can't have two bosses at the same time, or as Jesus said, you cannot have two masters at the same time. It's either one or the other, or like in the book, it says God is either everything or nothing. It's not like a 40, 60, 30, 70 program. Yeah, it's just, I just don't see it that way. And the real relief or the loss of interest in self that was sufficient enough to keep me sober a day at a time really came about by seeing self as not me. Because if I saw it was me, no matter how bad or good the condition it seemed to be in, I was obsessed with it. Yeah. Now I don't see its condition, my condition. I may feel mercy and compassion, but I'm not absorbed in it. Yeah, I'm not. I just don't. And its directions aren't my directions, and its conditions aren't my conditions, and its yapping about how it feels isn't how I feel. It's not a clear description of how I am when it's clearly describing how it is. Yeah. So the parasite is living as if it's me, and I'm the one that gets driven to all these fucking places I'd really rather not go. And as it says here, it's super clear if you read it with this kind of view. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Yes, all right. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. They mention 4 things, and 3 of them are preceded with the word self. I mean, how can you miss it? I can't. And this is not ego. It's not, because the self has a feeling it has an ego and can lose an ego. That is the bondage. Ego is an objectification of the problem by the problem, I feel. The real problem is ownership, is claiming thoughts are ours, feelings are ours, actions are ours, and no one else motivated us to have that thought but us or this. I just don't believe it. Yeah. And so this is the bondage of self, is taking ourselves to be it. Yeah. That's the bondage, man, because it's a heavy burden to carry, because it can be just functionally, literally insane. Yeah. So driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows. That's the action. Yeah, the action looks like I stepped on the toes of my fellows, but I do that driven by 100 forms of self, basically. Yeah. Now, the action in the movie would be me stepping on someone's toes or they stepping on my toes. Yeah. And usually everyone is just going by the movie. But what preceded that action was the bondage of self. Yeah. And self using us to express what it wants to express. So driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. And now here we start. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliated. Yeah. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation. All right. Just use an incident in a bar. You're looking at a woman who has a boyfriend. You're trying to make a move on her. The boyfriend, a few minutes later, takes offense, fucking steps on your toes, seemingly without provocation. Yeah. And therefore, you leave the bar with a black guy, and everyone you fucking talk about said, "Hey, I wasn't doing anything. Nothing. He just came and punched me in the face for no apparent reason." But when you look at it, they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time, like 20 minutes ago, in this example, at some time in the past, a very, 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 very present past, 20 minutes ago, we had made decisions based on self. Yeah, trying to make a move on the girl, knowing this 250-pound linebacker was her boyfriend. Yeah. So, and which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Yeah. So what we describe is the action. We don't describe the underlying causes that motivated the action. This is the bondage of self. And this is what AA does. We start having, by looking at our role in things, we see self's role in things. If we only look at everything as our role in things, or their role in things mostly, or her role in things, or his role in things, or my parents' roles in things, we never see self's role in things. And we're being defeated by not our parents, but by self. Yeah. Not that girlfriend, but by self. Yeah. We're out to lunch. And it says it. And here, what is it says? There's other places where it says we're extremely self-centered, but we don't think so. What would that be? That would be a parasitical defense to shield it from any fucking illumination. Something does not want you to see its role in your life. Yeah. So then it goes, I hope I'm just going to go off. If it gets too much, I can't even see your virtual hand, so you're going to have to listen. All right. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. I do not agree with that. I think our troubles are made by something. It's not us. I believe it's made by self. This is where I veer off this understanding. I don't believe this. I don't believe our troubles are basically of our own making. I believe they're manufactured by self through us. They are out of ourselves, exactly. They arise out of ourselves, exactly. Ourselves not being us, yeah. Ourselves, yeah. The ownership of self, ourself, is where this shit's arising from. That, too, I believe, is a clear diagnosis, humbly. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. This is the whole point. Don't you think it's interesting or curious that the alcoholic is usually the last one to know that it's an alcoholic? I mean, a lot of people who are sick know they're sick before other people know they're sick physically, because they're throwing up, they're feeling a temperature. I mean, there's indications that other people don't have about how you feel. But why in this case are we the last one to know? Yeah. I believe the illness has a camouflage effect, so to keep reinforcing the illness on us. Yeah? And it doesn't like any light to be shined on it. It doesn't. It likes to shine the light on everything else and blame the guy at the bar for punching me. Yeah. So our troubles, we think, are basically of its making, I would say. They arise out of self, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. Yeah. Your name hasn't been mentioned at all in these 3 sentences. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of the selfishness. So above everything is a pretty important statement, yeah? So basically, the most important thing in this program of recovery is to be rid of selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. And then there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. This was the great recognition of recovery. Yeah. They stopped trying, they realized the problem cannot produce the solution. Yeah. We have to find the solution to the problem from some other source than the problem. And this was revelatory, and they called it a spiritual solution. Yeah. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. That sounds like something is forcing its will on us. Yeah, it does. We'd like to behave different, but we seem not able to. That seems like something that's not in my camp is causing me not to be able to do what I would like to, which would be nicer, more selfless. So what is that but something has taken us over? Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying in our own power. Why not? Yeah. Because we fall into this dilemma that our community has galvanized as a simple statement: self can't get out of self. So unbeknownst to us, self may be the one that's plotting the course for recovery. And it's definitely not going to forget itself in the program of recovery. It's going to reinforce self in the program of recovery. Yeah. So neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much. This is incredible, really. Here. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. This is not a self-help program is really helping self in a sense. This is what they're telling us. Yeah. You're trying to get better, may be part of the illness. Just follow the simple suggestions and what we do here. Yeah. Don't turn it into your program. Follow the program. And you'll have the same effects on what you're not as we have had, which is a loss of interest in self, a loss of interest in what we're not. Yeah. All right. We had to, neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Now, when I heard this in the beginning, I thought a part of me or me was playing God, and that this was an order I didn't believe I could actually fulfill. I didn't believe I could quit playing God because I would have if I could have years before. Yeah. Over time, under the influence of the higher power, I came to a different understanding, which is something other than me is playing God. Yeah. And how I quit playing God in that case is losing interest in that something that's playing God. So in losing interest in self, I am quitting playing God. That's a simple way of recognizing it. Yeah. We had to have God's help. All right, it didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in the drama of life. So first, we've got to recognize we're not that which is playing God. Second, that will allow us to make a decision to allow that which is God to play God in our lives. Yep. Instead of having something already playing God about the God, we're going to now lose interest in that which is playing God and allow God to start playing a role in our life. And what role is that going to be? He's going to be the director. We're going to be the directed. Yes? They describe it. They describe our role now. Just as we were driven before by the lower power, we're going to be driven by the higher power. Yeah. It's not like we're ever going to be the driver, but we're going to shift what's driving us. Yeah. We're going to shift to the infinite rather to the finite, not through self-will, but through following the program of AA. That's what happens. You're going to lose interest in self. All right. He is the principal. We are his agents. They go on and on and on. So when we sincerely took such a position, many of us have done that in the past because we were fucked. Yeah. And we realize I am not managerial quality and I'm scared shit of another day under the tutelage of the old employer. I'm fucking scared shit now. Yeah. All sorts of remarkable things followed. Yes, we had a new employer, the higher power now. Its influence becomes very, very powerful in our lives. That's why we start seeing all these quote unquote coincidences and all this shit, because something else is moving us. You know? Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him. If that power is everywhere, you can't be far from him. So if you've already met that requirement, and then the only requirement is and performed his work well. Well, it could be any work. Yeah, that's not a specific, this work means you've got to pick up 20 cords of wood and 8 gallons of water. No, there's no specificness of it. It says perform its works well. All right. Yeah. You may follow the basic guideline of AA and you'll be under that category of performing its works well. Yeah. So that should give you an assurance or a resting in an assurance that you're going to be taken care of. Where and when? Here and now in this life. Yeah. I'm not worried about my spirit being taken care of. I'm worried about my body being taken care of. Yeah. Yeah. And this is what we're turning over. Here you go. Our will and life concerning this action figure over to the hands of a higher power. Yeah. And see if it does a better job. If it does, keep subscribing. Yeah. Stay a member. And then, yeah. What happens when you sincerely take this position? Well, establish. Oh no, after sincerely, you get established, which is great. Recovery progresses from sincerity to established. Yeah. Established on such a footing. What footing is that? Recognizing what's playing God is not you. Yeah. And not God. And then allowing God to play a role in your life through the program. Yeah. So we became, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, here we go. We became less and less interested in ourselves. That's the whole pivot of recovery, right there. You become less and less interested in self. Fucking hallelujah. I don't know how that's going to look for you, but you're going to feel it for sure. Our little less and less interest in ourselves, our little plans and designs. I love it because when you're obsessed with self, every plan and design seems big, doesn't it? We immediately are given a proportion change, all your little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life as we felt new power flow in. I've been feeling that for 36 years. As we enjoyed peace of mind. Now, yes. As we discovered we could face life successfully. Yes. As we became conscious of his presence. Yes. You become less and less conscious of self, and you become more and more conscious of the presence. That's how it works. You're not going to become more conscious of the presence with more consciousness of self. You're not. There's two masters. Self is one of them. It does not want you to have a 50-50 relationship with another master. It's like the Old Testament God. It's fucking jealous. Doesn't want any other master put before it. Yeah. We became conscious of his presence. We began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. Now that is unbelievable. One of the ways you begin to lose fear is to recognize it's mostly mental anxiety coming from that which is playing God. Yeah. Yeah. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Yes. That I may better do thy will. You're not going to better do its will through self-will. It isn't. You're not going to surgically improve self-will to do its will. It has a different agenda. Yeah. So it says, please relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. That's how you do the will better. That victory over them may bear witness those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. That's step 12, really. Yeah? May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready. You're ready. Don't wait. Don't make sure your head says it's ready. Just say you're fucking ready. Yeah. Your head is going to fucking drag its feet all freaking day. It wants to make a third step as a transactional agreement. I'll do this if you give me that. That's not the third step. Yeah. So we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. If you're sober today, and let's say you went to a meeting or you have a sponsor, you're fucking ready. Don't listen to your head's, oh, I don't think I'm ready yet. That's what it's going to come up with almost the whole fucking time. All right. So thank you. I can't see anyone. All I see is the lovely matriarch of Madeira, but I can't see anyone else. I don't want to touch the phone because something will happen. So take it away, Mickey.
Thanks, Paul. Now we're going to open it up and see if anybody else has anything to ask or anything to share. I don't see any. Oh, here we go with Al, Big Al from Vegas. Come on in, Al.
Hey, everybody. We had a really, we had a little warm-up session here before the meeting started. And I'm just going to put it out here like this. Paul had some event transpire. He's mentioned it more than once, 7 years in. And this guy had one recently, a few minutes back. I had one at 14 years sober. Is it that easy? Does the weight, does all of a sudden I just tip the scale? Because you just said, I can't get there. I'm not ready, you said. Or is it just that easy and just in a moment's time? Because for me, 1 minute I'm in it and the next I'm out of it. It's very elusive. You may recall I've asked you more than once, can I lock this thing down? And you're like, no, sir, you cannot. One moment I have it, I'm grasping the ungraspable. I want to contain and hold and possess the unpossessable. how elusive and I don't know how to put this. I don't know.
Do you
How to-
remember the advice about butterflies? Don't try to catch them and they'll probably land on your shoulder.
Oh, yes.
It's sort of like that. The head would like to own something and it can't own it. So that's part of the losing interest, wanting to get an established experience, stabilized just the way it wants. No, that's not how it goes. It just allows you to travel lighter through life. It doesn't change what's your destiny as an action figure. At least it hasn't with me. Yeah. So you basically travel lighter through whatever's life has in store for you. What more do you want, literally? Your head wants a whole lot more, but in fact, this is the I feel this program can produce a level of enough. And then from there on, there's a lot of gratitude. Yeah.
No destination, nowhere to go, no bones to pick. It just happens when it happens. And before it happens, I don't know what's about to happen. And after it happens, I'm like, what just happened?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're on a need to know basis. And specifically for you, Al, you don't need to know much. So just keep looking ahead, taking the next step, and don't look behind. Don't look up. Don't look down. Just look straight ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
That's how I see it, really.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a point where the table gets turned in the game of life. When there's a certain level of loss of interest, something does actually stabilize. And you now have a solid basis or a foundation that doesn't get rocked as much. Yeah, it's like and I see it as the scale tipping from the interest in self and the interest in the infinite to the infinite side. Yeah. To a certain point where it changes everything, maybe in a subtle manner, but over years of traveling, you'll really notice it. Yeah. That's how I feel. So the losing interest, what does it say? You'll keep losing interest in self. Yeah. I think it says that here. Yeah, here we go. We had oh yeah. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. Yeah, yeah. That becoming less and less interested in ourselves could be the rest of your life. Yeah, yeah. But there'll be a point where the less interest will produce a huge more in the infinite. Yeah. Yes. The what's going to be noticed won't be the less interest. You'll start noticing the more interest in the infinite. Yeah, yeah. In other words, there's two parts of the gauge. We're only noticing the one part: extreme interest in self, losing interest in self. There's going to be a big emphasis shift on the more interest in the infinite. Yeah, you know what I mean? You're going to realize there was two gauges, and now your interest isn't in self, either losing or gaining interest in it. It's the more interest in the infinite. I think every one of us, sooner or later in this process of recovery, will see that. Yeah.
I heard something different today from you about well, I haven't done enough work yet. I'm not worthy of the change. I'm not ready. I'm not there. And there's no place to go. There's no condition. It just click my fingers and I'm there. Click my fingers and I've lost it again.
It's something else clicks their fingers, not you.
Thank you.
Something else clicks your fingers. And when you see that it was something else, it's probably going to linger longer than when the head claims to have been the one who clicked their fingers. Yeah.
I sent a guy a message. Yes.
Hmm?
I sent a guy a message one day. I say, I hope you stay out of your own way, newcomer. Hope you stay out of your own way today. And he says to me, I don't know what that means, rather than what does that mean? Stay out of your own way today. He doesn't say, what does that mean? He says, I don't know what that means. I'm like, that's the problem, buddy. You're
But
not
you'll
asking
feel
for
it. You'll
Yeah.
feel it when you're staying out of your own way. You'll feel it. This is sort of like the understanding of self as not you. You're first introduced to Braille. So your feeling changes. You don't know how to put a name to it or anything, but you're feeling different. Like just when you used to do service, I felt different. I felt available and bigger than I was. And I felt present. I didn't think I was present, and I didn't think I was more available. I felt it. Yeah. And it took a while to be able to have an understanding that could fit around that feeling. And it's not even necessary. But if you have a seed assignment to share, it may be necessary. So it's feeling. And in the beginning, you're getting reintroduced to it almost like another language through Braille. You're feeling different. Yes. Under the new employer, you're feeling like an intuition. You're feeling like an aha. Life is now speaking to you, and you're responding to it through feeling more or sensing. Yeah. And then the thoughts follow, or the names follow if they're needed to communicate. But you're going by Braille, and that's the new vision in a sense. Yeah. Because you can't rely on the old vision. It'll keep misperceiving shit. Yes. And see things out of proportion. We can't rely on our eyes in a way when we're first sober. Yeah. So this is a Braille, and it's the feeling of the bumps is through your fingers that transmits some message. Well, in a way, that's what I feel it's like. This sense of freedom from the bondage of self is truly a sense. Yeah. And you don't have to put it in words. Maybe you'll be dancing a little today, or you'll feel like you're right with us, the drumming of the hummingbird's wings. Yeah. These things, there'll be a closeness to life where you used to had a distance of being an observer. You'll be right in it now, feeling stuff. Yeah. So I believe we're reinterested. I know how self communicates to me, the idea of self. It's through the thoughts and through a language called English. Yeah. I do know now how the higher power communicates with me, and it's not usually through thoughts. Yeah. It's not. It's through feeling. It's through a sense of presence. Yeah. And a sense of being taken care of. I'm not looking at my financial condition every day to get a sense of being taken care of. I have a sense of being taken care of. Yeah, I do. And I feel like my life shifted from a moment to moment narration of thought into starting like feeling life, Braille, and then getting introduced to another form of language, which isn't constantly conceptualizing and name and forming. Yeah. I feel a presence. Yeah. I feel new power flowing in. It doesn't say I think new power is flowing in, because if I think, I'll think it's the old power. No, I feel new power flowing in. I feel the conscious presence. I can enjoy peace of mind. It doesn't say I think about peace of mind. I enjoy it. Yeah. So I feel like, when you're a kid, you may have been following feelings a lot more. And then somehow we got established in this narration of the head. And you started feeling an absence of life. And so you wanted to fill it up with drugs and alcohol and feel like you were alive again. And things occurred from that. And you got captured in like a web of self. And you've been more what's been eaten or used for food than the one who cast the web. And something just like when you see sometimes a moth or something gets caught in the web, it can't get out of it, but I can pull the moth off the web. Yeah, because I have more strength than the web does. Yeah. So I don't sometimes intervene in life, but sometimes I do. And so I take the bug out and it goes flying off on its merry way. But it wasn't going to get flying off on its own merry way. It wasn't. Yeah. And the spider was making a move. It was going to be a cocoon in a second. Bammo. Yeah. This is sort of what I feel grace is like. It takes something, lifts us off from the fly paper and allows us to have a feeling of flying again before we fucking come crashing down and stuck on the fly paper. Yeah. That's how I'm feeling it today anyway. So I'm not driven by thought so much. Thought is like a narration of a lot of trips I've been on already. I'm not that excited when it points out the window for me to look at it. I've seen those vistas already. I have. I don't want to go the 80th trip with self being the tour guide. Yeah. I'd much rather feel myself through a day than think myself through a day. Yeah. Yeah. I hope you get it, that feeling. Yeah.
Thanks for being here for me and us.
Well, I right back at you, Al, and everyone. So everyone right now is presented by Al. I can't see anything else.
Well, get ready because Mike M is coming in.
All right.
Get ready. I was thinking about what Al asked, and I think for so many years there was this idea of when am I going to get these promises? When am I going to get this feeling of stability, of ease and comfort? And little by slowly coming here and doing inventory in a different way, the line that made sense to me is what we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance. It says our spiritual condition, but I believe it's a spiritual condition. I don't believe it's mine, because the idea that I own this spiritual condition, and I know it may sound like splitting hairs to certain people, but I really believed that I was enlarging my spiritual life. Like I believe that I was responsible solely for doing this. And what I've learned coming here and just listening to a lot of non-duality is it's not my fucking spiritual condition. Like there's some steps and principles here we follow, and that gets enlarged without me trying to enlarge it. Like that is so crazy. I never believed that. And you said it, like we turn this spiritual program into a self-help program with the best intentions of self, right? And the road to hell is paved with those good intentions that come from the most spiritual version of self. Like it's so crazy, Paul, how this has been presented. The other thing I was thinking about is replacing, it's no big deal, replacing the word fear with mental anxiety. The book talks about outgrowing fear. Well, no, I can't outgrow an emotion with the emotion, right? So I really do believe that it's about outgrowing mental anxiety by losing interest. And even it says in the fear inventory, we asked ourselves why we had the fear. So that would be like looking at what self is producing, as far as this mental anxiety or these crazy thoughts that are triggering the emotion of fear. Like, what an easier way to look at this. Instead of telling people, oh, I'm in fear, and just reinforcing and exacerbating that with that ownership of what I think I'm in. So,
yeah.
Wow, what a revelation. And, this has been a spiritual experience of the educational variety. And thank God, because, Bill had a white light variety. To talk about this white light variety, dude, I would still claim ownership of that if that happened 15 or 20. Oh, you wouldn't believe the spiritual experience I had. It's really held me. Maybe. but I don't think I'm just built that way. I think it's more of the educational. So I appreciate you, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike. Well, remember too, it says, why are we in so much fear? Isn't it because self-reliance has failed us? So if you want to get released from fear, what you call fear is to question the self-reliance. If you rely on the higher power, there'll be less fear. Yeah. So obviously the fear and that which is directing you have a dual role. Yeah. So if you want to lose the fear, you got to sort of change what's directing you, and you can't do that. So this program does. You just, these simple suggestions and this way of life will allow a change at the CEO level, yeah, of the corporation. Yeah. So, and then you'll see, I would think, when you get relieved of fear, you're going to see it's not fear most of the time. It's mental anxiety. And then you now have a clear recognition of where does mental anxiety, where is it found? Well, it's found where the problem is. It resides in the mind. Yeah. So there you go. So the birthing of mental anxiety is self. And now you've gotten to the source or the origin of the fear. Yeah. Yeah. It's not you losing fear. It's you being directed by something else, really. And then you experience or observe a loss of fear. You don't do it, but it's done to you, and then you observe it. Yeah, that's how I see it. And I think that's the way you can describe what happens in AA. Something is done to you, and then you come to see it. Yeah. Because a lot of the other shit that was done to you was done without you knowing, as it says quite a lot in the book. We don't know a lot of shit that's been done through us, and now we start to know where what's been done through us is coming from, and it breaks into those two possibilities: finite self or the infinite. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty it's like, fucking 10 Santa Monica and Highway 5. They're distinctly different. Yes. I mean, so yeah, you're on a road, but the roads are quite different. And so yeah. So thanks, Mike. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you. And your shares. All right, Nikki.
And we have no further hands, Paul.
Well, again, I don't want to touch this freaking phone and lose anyone. So I'm just going to say goodbye to Mickey, and through saying goodbye to Mickey and Mike and Al, the only ones I've seen, I hope it goes to everyone else that's in attendance. Yeah.
There's a mob of us.
So I'm going to use Mickey as the collective and thank Mickey for her participation in running the meeting. And I want to thank everyone. It's nice to be heard. Yeah. Because in a sense, we've been crying wolf for thousands of years, so to speak, thousands of times. So it's so funny how it worked that this Zoom, because of all the shit that happened, became a vehicle. And it's actually been the perfect vehicle to sort of be able to present a view without much debating of other things. We're not having any opinions about other ways of seeing it. We're just presenting this way. And it's been a wonderful vehicle for me. And yeah, I have a lot of gratitude for everyone and for just the possibility of being able to share without having to have an argument with someone or whatever, just well, that wasn't my intent or whatever. It was just to be helpful if we could, of maybe getting clearer about what has defeated us. But whatever. Thank you. I'll see you guys.
I
Paul.
appreciate your
Thank you,
expression.
Paul.